Twice in the last week or so, the top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell has unflatteringly compared FBI agents interrogating the Christmas Day bomber to CNN's Larry King.
I mean, Larry King would have a more thorough interrogation of one of his witnesses than the Christmas bomber had by the Justice Department. He was given a 50-minute interrogation. Probably Larry King has interrogated people longer and better than that.
Casting no aspersions whatsoever on Mr. King. He's always seemed like a nice man who's very good at his job. But what does Mitch McConnell have against the FBI? Has he got some specific beef with the FBI that he's going to take up in policy and legislation? Or is he just going to keep trashing FBI agents on television for political effect? This is the kind of thing that politicians usually end up having to apologize for. So far, despite making the same crack twice in a 5-day span, there's been no apology yet. I would warn you to set a Google alert in anticipation, but now that an ally of President Obama's has said publicly that Mitch McConnell should apologize to the FBI, I think we can be pretty sure that Mr. McConnell will not apologize.
Maybe if all those politicians stopped attacking the FBI, Mitch McConnell likened the FBI to Larry King interview. Maybe if they'd stop with the politics,
now that's cool.
They would. Well, no, I think he owes the FBI an apology.
Former Clinton Chief of Staff John Podesta speaking there. He co-chaired the Obama-Biden transition team. And he's one of many now pushing the GOP in public for getting so much factually wrong in the mad rush to politicize the Christmas Day bombing to try to hurt the president.
But those FBI agents and others acted appropriately. And quite frankly, I'm tiring of politicians using national security issues such as terrorism as a political football. They're going out there, they're unknowing of the facts, and they're making charges and allegations that are not anchored in reality. On Christmas night, I called a number of senior members of Congress. I spoke to Senators McConnell and Bond. I spoke to Representative Boehner and Hoekstra. I explained to them that he was in FBI custody, that Mr. Abdul-Muttalib was in fact talking, that he was cooperating at that point. They knew that in FBI custody means that there's a process then you follow as far as Mirandizing and presenting him in front of a magistrate. None of those individuals raised any concerns with me at that point. They didn't say, is he going into military custody? Is he going to be Mirandized?
That was White House counterterrorism advisor John Brennan speaking on Meet the Press. Senator Kit Bond, incredibly, has since responded by saying that he didn't understand that a person in FBI custody would naturally and as a matter of course be read their rights. Senator Bond, I should note here, is actually a United States senator. The former counterterrorism advisor to President Bush and President Clinton before him, Richard Clarke, also attacking the GOP now for not grasping even the basic facts of how terrorism arrests and prosecutions work, but still trying to use them to score political points. Mr. Clarke writing in the New York Daily News, quote, "Recent months have seen the party out of power picking fights over the conduct of our efforts against al-Qaeda, often with total disregard for the facts. It's been hard to escape the conclusion that the goal of these critics is to discredit the president's handling of terrorism for political advantage, whether or not the administration is actually doing a good job. The GOP talking point machine, repeated by Fox television commentators and others, does not bother to learn the facts about terrorism before they leap to attacking the party in power's handling of the issue. They are wrong on the facts, and they are wrong morally to attempt to make political gain on the damage inflicted by terrorism." So says the George W. Bush and Bill Clinton counterterrorism advisor Richard Clarke. Unless there be any doubt that the administration realizes that on this issue of terrorism, it has caught its Republican critics in the act of making stuff up and attacking their own policies, the president himself is going there. Here he was in a pre-Super Bowl interview on CBS.
We're not handling any of these cases any different than the Bush administration handled them all through 9/11. They prosecuted 190 folks in these Article III courts, got convictions, and those folks are in maximum security prisons right now. And there have been no escapes, and it is a virtue of our system that we should be proud of. Some of the same critics of our approach have been employing this policy for years.
Joining us now is NBC's chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, thank you so much for coming back on the show tonight and braving the snow to do so.
You bet.
No
problem.
Does it just feel like the administration and its allies are firing back hard against these attacks about the Christmas Day bomber, or is this really a concerted effort? Am I connecting the appropriate dots here?
Well, I think what's going on is that right after the Massachusetts Senate defeat for the Democrats, Republicans realized they had a really good issue. The number one issue that Scott Brown mentioned in Massachusetts was terror. It was terror, taxes, and then health care. And I think they realized that they've got something going here, and the administration has almost played into their hands with a series of steps that were not really well explained. And I think that is part of the problem. Part of the problem is it was Christmas. People were given a 2-minute briefing, and in kind of a parallel world to the largely inadequate Bush administration briefings that we know about to members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress back then, I think they didn't want to tell very much, nor did they want to go into a whole lot of detail, nor was anyone really eagerly looking for information at that time, partly because, let's face it, they were not on secure lines. Everyone was out of pocket. So this was a series of steps, accidents waiting to happen, where nobody was in a position where they could go to a secure room. Nobody was in Washington. So there's part of it is accidental, coincidental. Part of it is deliberate, because the Republicans now smell blood. And the Democrats, certainly this White House, has not been very good at explaining it. So you had this very unusual situation on Meet the Press where John Brennan, a career intelligence official, we don't know what political stripe he has, if he has any, he actually went after Republicans on the Hill, people who might someday have to be confirming him if he were not in the White House and had a confirmable nomination. And you don't normally see this. This is a career guy who's worked in Democratic and Republican administrations at the CIA and other places. And that was pretty unusual. Michael Isikoff and I were talking earlier about this today. A very unusual step for them to take. They feel that they have been maligned, misunderstood, and are being criticized for exactly what the Bush administration did.
You seemed last week on your show here on MSNBC, we played the clip of your interaction with Senator Susan Collins of Maine talking about this issue, and you seemed to somewhat to sort of flabbergast her when you pointed out that the procedures the Obama administration followed now are the same that the Bush administration used in lots of other terrorism cases. I wonder if that sort of fact-based confrontation is pushing Republicans to have to consciously position themselves as to the right of Bush and Cheney on terrorism now.
Well, what they are arguing is that they should have been briefed, number one, that this interrogation was not handled properly. And in fact, they were given a little bit of a window there because Dennis Blair, the head of the Director of National Intelligence, initially criticized the FBI for the way they handled it and then backed off that criticism. So there were a series of confusing signals from the administration itself indicating that there had been some mistakes made in this case. What they are now saying, the administration, is that there was 50 minutes of questioning, then they took him for medical care, and it was then that he clammed up and eventually had to be given his rights because he had been arrested here in the United States. There's plenty of evidence. Jane Mayer, our colleague and friend, documents it brilliantly in The New Yorker this week. Plenty of evidence that there was a better track record with these civilian cases than with military commissions for people arrested during all of the Bush years. So there's no question that they have gotten very good information. And I think the other frustrating thing for the administration is they have not gotten out there just how cleverly they flew to Nigeria after first blowing it when the father came in and went to the embassy and tried to talk about his son, and clearly the agent on duty, the embassy officials, probably all the way up to the ambassador, did not pick up on those signals. So he should not have been on the fly list. He should have been stopped. He should, his visa and access should have been checked way earlier. Those mistakes have been acknowledged. But then they went to Nigeria, got the family involved, flew the family to Detroit, and persuaded him to start talking and started getting very good actionable intelligence, they tell us. And so they're kind of angry that they're not getting credit for that. One other thing, Rachel, I think this has been a perfect storm for the administration because they really did not properly handle the 9/11 terror trial proposal for New York City. They didn't notify the mayor, the police chief properly. They didn't work with the families. They didn't lay the groundwork for that, for bringing Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to New York City. And that is giving the Republicans and other critics ammunition because it's two things being merged together in people's minds to help let people like Sarah Palin accuse the president of being soft on terror.
Andrea Mitchell, NBC's chief foreign affairs correspondent, thanks very much again for joining us tonight. Appreciate it, Andrea.
You bet.